Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for attending our event on this beautiful night. My name is Christina and I am Factory Media Center's Operations Coordinator. Before we begin tonight, I would like to take the time to acknowledge that the land of present-day Hamilton is situated on the shared ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes and preserve them to years to come. As a not-for-profit artist-run center, the Factory is committed to active ongoing reconciliation in collaboration with Indigenous peoples in our communities. If you're interested and would like to get involved in this work, one place to start is at 1492 Landback Lane in Caledonia, which is about 20 minutes away from Hamilton. Indigenous land defenders protected treaty land from developers in 2020 through 2021. And despite the development project being canceled in July 2021, an injunction was filed by the developers to regain residency just a few weeks ago on March 22nd of this year. Therefore, it is still an active defense site, or it is still a defense site. There are calls for donations to help with this ongoing action, and please get in touch if you'd like to learn more. If you haven't heard of Factory Media Center, we are a media arts resource in Hamilton, Ontario. We host exhibitions, screenings, provide multimedia equipment, studio space, and skill development workshops for local artists and independent filmmakers, or anyone else interested in digital media. We are currently relocating to a new space on Victoria Street North. I would like to thank our funders, the Insight Foundation for the Arts, the City of Hamilton, Ontario Arts Council, and Canada Council for the Arts for their contributions to our center. You're joining us here tonight for Jimmy Limit's Artist Talk. So Jimmy Limit is Factory Media Center's remote artist in residence from January to February 2022. So tonight we'll be hearing a little bit about what he was up to during his residency and a bit about Jimmy's practice as a whole. If you're joining us from videos embedded on our Facebook page, from our Instagram bio, or our website, please head over to the YouTube page directly to participate in the live chat function. You're welcome to comment or ask questions, and at the end, we'll facilitate the comments to Jimmy. One more person to thank is Jessica Rodriguez, our amazing live stream tech making this possible tonight. So if anything goes wrong, Jessica will fix it for us and we'll get right back to it. Thank you so much. So a little bit about Jimmy before we talk. Jimmy Limit uses photography and video to explore the tension between image and object. Adopting the language of commercial photography and advertising, he creates highly graphic compositions that are both familiar and strangely illegible, causing the viewer to question the motives of the imagery. He has exhibited in solo and group exhibitions throughout Canada and the United States, including the Albright Knox Art Gallery in Buffalo, in Timokova and Casella, Tallinn, Estonia, Rodman Hall, St. Catharines, Toronto, and Print Matter, New York. His work has been published in the New York Times, Frieze magazine, and has been featured on the covers of Scene magazine and Cura. Recent public works have included photos for a project in progress at the Bentway in Toronto and photos for vacant storefronts for Kafka 16 in Kitchener, Ontario. He was born in Toronto and currently lives and works in St. Catharines with his partner and 3 children. And without further ado, I will hand it off to Jimmy now.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Jimmy. Thanks for that great introduction, and thanks to Factory as well for this grant or this residency program, which is really great. Really appreciated the the ability to just focus on work in the studio and use some new technology, which I hadn't used before, which I'll get into a little bit as we talk. I'll talk about a bunch of stuff. But Christina covered a lot of my practice there, which does encompass a number of different things, including photography and installation, bookworks, and video as well, although video is something I have not worked with as much. Just to give you a sense of some of my photo work and installation work, so a few pictures here I can share. So when I work with installation, I often try to expand the photograph onto the wall. So that involves painting the wall, obviously, and then using other materials, which are then photographed again and become another photograph. My studio practice is based around still life photography, really looking a lot to the history of still life, but also to contemporary stock photography and commercial photography and advertising imagery. So with that, I use a lot of, quite bright colors, and really think about, how desire is created within an image and how advertising works in that way. But in these images, obviously, it's different. There's nothing obvious that's being sold. And the emphasis is on the photograph, not on the objects within it. So let me see here. I'm just catching up. So as an extension of these photographs, in 2016, I did a series of videos that were exhibited at Gallery 44 in the vitrines. It's part of a small exhibition called Shop Floor. And these were basically just expanding my photographs and adding movement. So working in the same kind of studio ways, using very similar materials, thinking about very similar things, but adding some movement to them, some motion. And so these were roughly the length of television commercials. And when I was making them, I was thinking a lot about the home shopping channel, and infomercials, which might make more sense, when I show you some of these. But ultimately, these are kind of, purposeless videos, removed from the context of advertising. They're not really doing much. So they're a little bit confusing in that way, but also, quite absurd, and pointing back to the absurdity around consumer and commodity culture. Okay, so I've made a little bit of a YouTube playlist here, which I can share the link of later on too. So this is going to kind of take us through what I want to talk about here. And we're going to wind up at the end with the work I created in this residency program. But it's going to take a little bit for us to get there. I also want to say, I don't know how you're going to do it, but if you want to interrupt with a question or make a comment, or tell me something one of these videos might remind you of and suggest something else, you can probably do that somehow. I don't know how, but you can try. Okay, so we're going to start. We're going to show a few of these short videos from Gallery 44, which was in 2016. I'll give you a bit of director's commentary too as we go. The videos when they were exhibited actually didn't have audio, but there was audio there because they were showed in a vitrine. No one really listened to them, so they're kind of these silent videos. But here is an example of the video with stock music that I had added as well to really push home that idea infomercial, or, oh, it's a playlist, so we can just keep going. I'm sorry, actually, this one didn't start from the beginning. We better start it from the beginning. Apparently my connection is unstable. So we saw that one. I just need to make sure these ones start at the beginning. And I think I mentioned before that I will be able to share this link later on. So in some of these, the music is actually dictating the length of, oh my gosh, the length of the video. And some of them, the music has had to be slowed down or looped again. But sometimes I just found that perfect audio length that really just fit perfectly. One thing I'm interested in, and what I'm excited about showing this through YouTube, is that YouTube as a context has affected art in such a weird sort of way, in that when something is shown in a gallery, it's obviously viewed as art, but art viewed on YouTube isn't necessarily seen in that same way. And we're going to get to that too by showing some other artists' work that I was thinking about when creating these. I'm also really interested in, DIY production, and how, a lot of technology now is kind of cheaply available and widely available to get really, really high production value, as well as a lot of YouTube tutorials to really get you to that point of being able to make really high production value work, which further confuses things when you're watching YouTube, because something you don't know if it's just a guy in a studio or, a really high budget. Okay, so we got 2 more of these Gallery 44 videos to go through. So let's see, here we go. And here the music gives it a bit of a Western kind of vibe, and it's slowed down a little bit too, but really, quite ambiguous as far as what it means, what I'm trying to say here, which is part of the point as well. If you don't eat it quickly enough, it starts to decompose. Probably elements of these are in other photographs as well, and then appear here again in this video. I bought this mechanical turntable that someone, it looked like, had built from a hobby shop that was going out of business where I live. And so there's a lot of playing around with that. All right, right into this then. Sorry. So when thinking about movement, adding movement to photographs, there's a lot of kind of viscous fluids and things I began using to capture drips, and those things come up again in the work I made as part of this residency. This is on a hair gel on a yoga ball, and the music, I thought, gave it a bit of like an old, Price is Right or game show kind of vibe, but other people have brought up porn, which I don't totally get, but they also talk about the fluids and being bodily in that way. So that's kind of that's what I applied with when applying for this residency, was this video work. And it was really good timing because I had seen it recently and felt like it was really great in a way, and wanted to revisit it. So again, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that, using the Blackmagic Ursa camera and using LED light panels that I'd wanted to try for quite a while. So there are some other things I was thinking about, obviously, when planning and preparing for these shoots. And I think obviously going back to older video artists and how they worked, and the technology used at the time, and how that kind of dictated what they were making. And even now when we're watching older works, we're seeing it through this historical lens, and we're thinking about the quality of the image maybe more than the actual ideas in there. And it made me curious how some of these kind of seminal video works would be made today with expanded technology beyond film cameras and early video cameras and that technology. So one of these, which is cool, it's on YouTube, this seminal structural film by Michael Snow called Wavelength, which I actually haven't watched the whole thing. The whole thing is on YouTube, but it's 45 minutes long. So maybe, let's see, we'll get it on here. We'll watch a bit. We'll maybe skip a little bit too, because it does go on for a bit. And you can see again here the early video technology and the quality of the image itself. And thinking about work I'm making in my studio, because this is made in Michael Snow's studio, and how even that space can kind of dictate what's happening. My studio, though, and the way I shoot is very much about creating, a non-space, or a space that you wouldn't be able to recognize, any features by. So basically the whole thing is a 45-minute zoom. So you can see it's coming in. And there's a lot happening. It takes a lot of patience to watch the whole thing. And eventually it zooms into this little picture on the end, which is of waves in the sea. And so it ends on a frame that's fully in the waves, which you could almost think of as kind of like an escape from the studio scene it's shot in. So that's amazing. It's on YouTube, for one. So that accessibility, but of course, this seminal experimental art film is also mixing with all kinds of other things on YouTube. And of course, the way we can skip ahead so easily means our attention spans are a lot shorter. So then what happens with this kind of film when it's kind of like open access and people can explore and play with it? So here we have someone has edited that full 45 minutes down into 2.5 minutes. And you can kind of see what happens there. It's like you almost notice different things within it because you're not, your mind isn't wandering or your eyes aren't kind of drifting away. I should mention this is 1966, so 55 years ago. And it's funny on YouTube too, when you search for it, you'll find multiple versions. There's a 15-minute version, but there's also reviews that people have posted of it, which I find really interesting. I think one of them's a bit serious, but kind of joking. One of them is just a straight up joke. But again, even now, with the amount of YouTube and short videos we're all exposed to, even this in 2.5 minutes seems like kind of a long watch. I won't skip it. But I think, we kind of know where it ends. It's this really long zoom. And then, of course, thinking about this and thinking about if it was made now, the actual technical component, I know a lot of the time done is, you have a really high res video or image, and then you use After Effects kind of to do a slow zoom on it, rather than this kind of like 45-minute manual zoom. And I think probably a lot of people who work with video and I experienced it too, is even having like a steady zoom working on a camera is really tricky, even for 10 seconds, let alone 45 minutes. So there we go. We're at the waves again. So let me just see here, because the next version I have is, sorry, some of these are starting midway through. So this is a version someone created actually not that long ago, which is again a 2.5 minute version, but put up against The Simpsons. This sort of overlap, and there's this kind of like this narrative in the film where I think there's something terrible happens, someone dies. So this is kind of playing with that, but with The Simpsons. So something really recognizable in pop culture, The Simpsons, that everyone probably recognizes, with something really quite niche. But with the internet and YouTube now, we have these real micro niches where all this stuff can find an audience. And then the question is like, well, is this a joke? Is this like a meme, or is this art? Or do we have to really, make these definitions around it? The fact that it's on YouTube again is kind of confuses that fact. This could be in an art gallery we know as art. But here again, everything kind of gets mixed together.
Superintendent, I hope you're ready for mouth-watering hamburgers.
I thought we were having steamed clams.
No, I said steamed hams. Oh, not in Utica. No, it's in Albany.
Nice. These hamburgers are quite similar to the ones they have at Krusty Burger.
Oh, no. Patented Skinner Burgers. Old family recipe.
For steamed hams.
Yes.
Yes, and you call them steamed hams despite the fact they are obviously grilled.
Wonderful. Good time was had by all. I'm pooped.
Yes, I should be. Good Lord, what is happening in there?
Aurora Borealis?
Aurora Borealis. At this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen.
Yes.
That's it?
No.
Seymour! The house is on fire!
as the northern lights.
Well, Seymour, you are an odd fellow, but I must say, you steam a good hand.
Whoa. All right. So I really like that. I only found that today actually when I was looking for things, and it's not that old. It's got maybe 500 views, but there really is that build up of tension, which is pretty funny. Really, the biggest kind of seminal video influence I was thinking of going into this, and I actually remade this as part of this residency, is this film called Lemon by Hollis Frampton, which is made 3 years after Wavelength. And Hollis Frampton is actually the guy who dies in Wavelength, which is kind of interesting, I think. I live in St. Catharines, so we're pretty close to Buffalo and Albright Knox, and Hollis Frampton has a legacy there from teaching at SUNY, and Albright Knox has quite a big collection of his works in their permanent collection. And I'm already pretty partial to lemons and citrus fruit. So this video really spoke to me the first time I saw it. Is really, I thought, quite beautiful. Almost like a sunrise on a landscape, but really revealing the form of the lemon, and kind of just being more of a study, which he did a lot. These studies of kind of seemingly silly things. Rather ubiquitous objects, which is again something I'm interested in. And here, again, thinking about how he would have done it at the time, and trying to emulate that a little bit in my own version, which you could easily do, just fading in with video editing software, but here I think actually just using the light to kind of dim it or slowly raise it to show you that lemon. And there it is. There's that lemon. So let me see. Eventually, we're going to fade back out of this lemon, and we're going to get this beautiful silhouette, this crest, which almost looks planetary. Looks like a photograph maybe that NASA would have produced. And then it just fades right out, and then whoa, you think it's done, but then it becomes backlit. So I'm also a product of this short attention span culture. So you'll see when I share the version I made, it's not as slow as this. And it kind of happens over and over and over. But this is of a different time. Before you could just skip ahead in a video, you had to probably watch, you had to watch the whole thing. So Hollis Frampton, love Hollis Frampton. All right, and up next, what do I have? Oh boy. Oh, we got an ad. Well, while this ad happens, I'll just tell you. Oh, I can skip it. So this is a video by William Wegman, who's famous for photographing dogs with people's arms, basically. These Weimaraner dogs, which are his pets and collaborators in a way. So I think this was commissioned, it said at the beginning, I think as part of like a tourist board. And it's just these really, everyday scenes in Central Park, but with these dogs, and I can even see someone's head behind the dog there. So not really pushing a high production value, but really quite funny, humorous. I watch I make my kids watch it a lot, but I don't know how much they like it after a while, because this again, he became famous for working with these dogs in this way, and humanizing them, But within YouTube, this kind of thing is pretty easy to emulate and copy and just do for a funny video, right? To try and get views and likes, which is very different than, create it for an art exhibition, and a lot of you couldn't really get away with exhibiting work like this in a gallery without the obvious reference to William Wegman. I would also admit I'm a bit of a Weg head. I really do love his work. But when we get into YouTube and this is mixed with other things, I don't think it's too likely that someone who's randomly going to find this is going to think of it as art, or something to be seen in a museum or an art gallery. Much more likely to think it's someone who's doing some funny videos, to be some kind of like dog influencer, I guess. But again, this is kind of like another, there's more cuts than the previous examples. This is, but again, not high res, which is going back to, I think 2007 it was made, shot just like on the digital technology then. And you can see just like, looks kind of like just going out and shooting with whatever, almost like maybe even point and shoot digital camera they had. Yeah, pretty funny. But again, just like slow, short attention span might mean I want to click ahead a little bit, see what's happening. So still kind of pre-YouTube era video, but something that would have had the potential to go viral outside of an art audience, which is also something that William Wegman is so amazing for, is that beyond his West Coast conceptual art roots, which he's very attached, and as well as like New York contemporary art world, he was able to expand and reach such a wide audience who had no idea of his art practice, through like Sesame Street and calendars you could buy at the shopping mall, that kind of thing. I find this part pretty funny because the dog obviously wants to get off of the person and run around too, but it's just left barking. I could skip this one, but I actually haven't watched it for a while and I really like it. All right. So the next video I haven't actually watched yet. I found it, but I thought we could just watch it for the first time all together. And it's called, what's it called?
I have a
Oh,
challenge for all of
boy.
you. Go to every computer in your house.
It's called Dogs with Human Hands Funny Dog Compilation. So you can see here that it's not that hard to do. And as soon as something like YouTube came along, obviously this is something that people are going to do because it's pretty funny. It's pretty cute. And it further confuses, what is art on YouTube? How do we define art on YouTube? Which is really quite tricky. A lot of time we can define art just by saying it's what's in an art gallery.
Ooh, my favorite.
Good.
I mean, this is pretty funny. Like, if I had a dog, I'd want to do this for sure. Within an art context, though, impossible to do it without referencing or kind of ripping off William Wegman at this point. All right, this is very cute, but let's skip ahead. Well, that's a good one. That's I should screenshot that. That's pretty funny. Okay, so let's see. What do I have next? So what I'm kind of getting at is how do we define art when it can look so much like something else, and it's in a context that's pretty democratic in that anyone can upload something to it. So here we go with this video called Clown Torture by Bruce Nauman, which is, kind of disturbing, kind of funny, but also definitely art because it's being shown in an art gallery. So that context is really defining how it's interpreted, how it's viewed, and giving it some air of importance when it's like, he's in a clown costume yelling. So the next video, just to give, are we in the right spot? Yeah, almost here. Just to give some context too, I'm from kind of pre-internet era. Internet started, coming in when I was maybe a preteen, and so things like cable access TV were really big. The sort of like pre-YouTube accessible, more democratized form of entertainment. And Tom Green was a really big part of that. And just to play this in relation to Bruce Nauman, I think is pretty interesting.
Meat. 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 It's the kind of meat that it's the kind of meat that it's my favorite. It's the kind of my kind of meat. It's 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 my kind. It's my kind. It's my kind. Meaty. Meeting people. I met him last week, and he said to me, he said, hi. He said, how are you doing? I said, well, I don't know. Like to talk to me. I don't care. Hey, oh no, starting fires. I don't care what you say. No, but hey, no, hey, oh no. Ah.
Right. So Tom Green, to me, kind of is this. It kind of draws a line from, performance art, like Bruce Nauman, this kind of unhinged character, into this like more of a mass media, not meant to be read as art, but meant to be read as comedy. So it's okay to laugh. Maybe it's less okay to laugh in an art gallery. You're supposed to think of it more seriously. But again, if that was shown in an art gallery, people would be like, this is some serious performance art. This is, well, maybe not serious performance, but this is art. Maybe whether or not it's good or bad, you consider it to be art. And it looks like art to me in a lot of ways. And it's kind of like an awkward laughter that might emerge, maybe an uncomfortable laughter. But again, Tom Green is doing this in a pre-YouTube era, and then once YouTube comes along, this kind of celebrity and thing changes because it's really easy to emulate this, and now you have this huge platform that anyone can be posting this to. But I think Tom Green was really influential for a lot of artists. Okay, and then we're going to show a couple
luscious caramel
infomercial clips. This is a nice ad, actually.
Makes every day a bite better.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Vince. Wow, you'll be saying wow every time you use this towel. It's like a chamois, it's like a towel, it's like a sponge. A regular towel doesn't work wet. This works wet.
So I don't know if you ever tried watching one of these muted, but it's the visuals are really amazing. Maybe I should just go ahead and mute this one so we can test that. And a lot of the things I'm thinking of to photograph and to video, aren't too far off from some of the scenes here. They're just so weird and taken out of context, really are funny and don't make a ton of sense. So of course the audio on, it's a ShamWow, he's demonstrating these things, but if you just isolate that clip, how weird that can become. And I'm drawn to this too as well because of the fluids and the movement coming off of those. So that's the ShamWow. Here's a clip from Home Shopping Network, and I might skip ahead a little bit here. I do love the music though. It's got that stock music, but really it gets good here when we start getting these views of I don't know what, like a kitchen set. And these sort of camera movements are something that I'm thinking about a lot too. But here, very much a commercial aesthetic. So it's like, yeah, these things are being sold, or, you know, trying to convince the viewer to call in and buy this stuff. And then I don't know why those digital snowflakes are added on top. But, you know, removing that context, this is some very weird video stuff. I don't know what's, oh, flex tape is a more recent thing.
Hi, Phil Swift here
And
for
Phil, well, I'll leave the captions on so you can follow along if you want. But man, did you see that shot? That was really pretty amazing. So here, you know, this is an example of infomercial really taking advantage of newest digital video technology. Like, look at that slow motion to sell the point. I haven't used it. I've known people who use flex tape, and they say it's a very good product. But even just like these tanks, like, and the whole set design is bizarre. And you know, I got to a certain point where I started looking at things just for their, you know, aesthetic or formal qualities, rather than thinking about what is being sold. And that really changed my way of creating images, you know, referencing a lot of this stuff, which taken out of context is just very weird. So you just cut a boat in half. I mean, this is a performance art right here, I would argue. He might not argue that, because he's just trying to sell you flex tape. But yeah, I might have to go out and buy some of this flex tape. I think they do a flex paint too, or like a flex glue. I'm not in any way paid by flex tape to say these things. I'm just, you know, seeing this. My mind is being blown. What do I have next? I gotta double check this, because that's not right. That's one of my videos, but I just wanted to check in to show you something going on right now. Actually, we could tune in at any point and look at the home shopping network to see what's going on. And it's just kind of like a 24-hour commercial going on. They seem to be selling jeans, but sometimes you get these really amazing long fades when they're showing products. So here, I'll go back here to this, just like the camera movement here, and, you know, the live camera operation of it, the amount of information that's on the screen is just so interesting. And especially if you watch this stuff muted, it's, I love it. But anyways, at any point you can tune in on YouTube, see what's going on in the home shopping network. And then you can order that Democracy Absolution cropped flare jean, which seems like a good price right now. So let's see. So let's come back to some of the work I made as part of this residency then. How about we do that? So this is like the longest cut I did. Let's do this. And it also doesn't have any audio, so it's maybe the closest to what we might associate to an artwork. And really, you know, taking advantage of the high-speed video and the zoom capabilities. And then, you know, just thinking about ways of incorporating some kind of motion that wouldn't, you know, require my hand being in the frame, so that I could set up and just start recording. So here's a bunch of matches taped together that are burning in, I think it's 120 frames per second here. So slow down a bit. And then a lot of the motion I was playing with, actually, you wouldn't really immediately notice in slow motion, just because of the nature of what it is. And then the hand is like one of those wooden drawing hands, just using as a support to hold it up. But, you know, really fascinated by the motion that the fire takes and causes these matches to kind of twist and turn around. And these long overlapping crossfades, which bring together two different images, which is a lot like my memories of the Home Shopping Network and how they would show their products. But here again, obviously, nothing's for sale. Potentially, the video itself is the object of consumption. It's at least the object of consumption for us watching it in terms of our media consumption. And then fading out. The next one, I'll just skip to it. It uses some stock music. So again, using this kind of the solid color backdrop, which is in the studio space, but also this non-space. It could be anywhere. The studio could be set up anywhere. It's not specific to my own studio. What do we have next? And then again, using another kind of fluid hair gel through this, I don't know, I think I got organic ginger in this bag. So, you know, slowing down the drips, but also the hair gel still traveling through. Then these camera movements. So again, when on YouTube, confusing because we recognize this aesthetic, we recognize this way of whoa, this way of you know, shooting and showing something. So I have a few more, but I you know, I ran out of upload the ability to upload on YouTube because I just uploaded so much today for this. So I'm going to share next my ode to Hollis Frampton's Lemon. So let's see. I don't remember if it has music. Oh, it does. It's got an upbeat kind of corporate soundtrack here. Which, you know, is kind of like very cheesy stock music that, you know, we haven't heard this particular song necessarily, but we've heard versions of this song and all kinds of things. And here, I think, you know, when you search for stock music, same as stock imagery or stock video, there's the different tag words, and here, you know, it's like uplifting, inspiring. So when that's added on to the lemon and this kind of like sunrise daybreak, you know, there's, you know, I don't know, this lemon takes on kind of this hopeful symbol. And then I had an onion too, so I had to do the onion as well. But again, if we, you know, we take that out, you know, we're just looking at daybreak on an onion, which is very different again, viewed outside of the context of audio. And then we're back in. No, back in, back in. No, still there, there it is. There's that onion. And that's it. And then there you go. So let's see what else I got. I got two more of these studio videos to share with you, and then something else I kind of began working on in the process of, sitting around and, oops, I didn't share it. Did I share it? Let me share it. Yeah, okay, here we go. So I do really love this kind of corporate music. It's really bland, uplifting corporate music that, much like the industry of stock photography, photographers can just pump out this stuff, hoping someone will license it. Similar with musicians, video too, of course. And recently I found that there's also a big market for stock 3D models. If you're doing 3D renders and then going for this really slow drip, a very slow drip. And this is a strawberry kids toothpaste that my kids hate and don't use. So it's now in my studio in a cupboard. And let's do one more. So, it becomes a bit of a challenge. How do I add motion where I don't have to, interfere in the frame and do too much, just let it happen and record. So here I had a power drill around and realized it could just work on its own with an elastic band if I held it down. So this is it, kind of just like walking around doing its thing with the mop head on the end, sort of sweeping, but this really absurd image of a drill working on its own, and using this commercial kind of advertising aesthetic. And it's kind of the low end of advertising, I would argue, Home Shopping Network. Oh boy. All right. So that's a couple of them. I still have more that I'm working through in terms of music and final edits. There's a couple that are made to loop endlessly as well, which is a little bit different. This is one of them, actually. I'll share a little bit so we can get a sense. So this guy just, this guy just loops. Not this guy, this video just loops. It just rotates around and around and around endlessly. And that's that one. And then there's other ones similar to that, kind of like with a little bit of motion, which is sort of loop around and around and around. And, thinking of when exhibiting those on video screens, it's almost like a framed moving photograph more than a video. In the past, when I had shown the video I made it for Gallery 44, it was shown on a monitor twice, and then as part of Mississauga Art on Screens, it was actually shown, I think, in the main Mississauga City Hall Square on one of their big screens there, which again confuses the context outside of the art gallery and a public space where advertising is usually shown. Okay, so in the process of also doing all this stuff, I was also working with some more digital work, which was nice because I could just set it up on my computer to run as I was taking breaks between shooting these videos for the residency. And this is using a GAN, which is spelled GAN, which is a generative adversarial network, which is you train a computer basically on a bunch of images to try to match those images by making new ones. which so I trained one of these on 723 of my own still life photographs, and obviously it takes a lot of time to process. And um, let's just make sure it loops. And you can get still images out of it, and it also will give you these videos, which, you know, just become these very bizarre forms. And obviously, because I'm so familiar with my photo practice, I can start picking out different elements that it's trying to emulate. You know, like I shot a yellow squash a lot. There's an orange emerging, different citrus fruit kind of comes out. I make a lot of ceramics, so ceramics also forms start coming through, which is really interesting as well. And it's nice because it's this kind of like dream where, you know, the computer's automated to make the photographs for you. You don't have to do it. Or videos for you. You no longer have to do it. But again, it also becomes a nightmare because like none of these are photorealistic. Obviously, they hint towards something, maybe like a bread. Was that bread I just saw? And you know, these textures come through. And then these are also using another for machine learning. They're up-resed. They're kind of like small, so they're up-resed into like a really high definition video, which increases that sharpness and brings out some of these really bizarre textures. But it's something I'm pursuing more, continuing to pursue, and it was nice to happen alongside these videos I made as part of the residency. Oh, I think, yeah, that's all my content right now. I don't know if there's something I forgot. But if anyone has any questions, now is probably the time to do it. If anyone's still watching, it's hard to tell because it's through YouTube, right?
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Sure. Hi.
Didn't mean to sneak up on you.
No, it's good. Someone's here. Probably I was talking to myself for an hour.
No, it was fun. Yeah, it was very fun watching like a selection of YouTube videos that you curated for us tonight.
Yeah, and again, so that I'll upload the rest of my videos to it once I have the ability to. I think I can do it in 24 hours, and then I'll share the link with you, and then I don't know, maybe we can make it communal too. If anyone wants to add to it, that would be cool to go back to it and check and see. I don't know how you do that. I'm sure there's a way though.
I'm sure there's a way. We'll figure it out. There's a little bit of a delay with the live stream, so I'll like read you a few comments before
okay.
Any
Sure.
questions might come.
Okay, cool.
Let's see. So there was some like abjectness to the first videos that you showed.
Yeah.
So we had a comment that Catherine said she was enjoying how the objects become abstract palettes of color and texture. So those were your first videos that you showed, and then there was
right, the gallery 44. Right.
Yeah, the piece where the fruit or vegetable was like starting to decay.
Mm-hmm.
The chat wasn't sure if that was a potato or what that was.
Oh, what was it? I don't remember either. It was a form of citrus though.
Citrus, yes.
Yeah.
Should have guessed. And Natalie says, I find Michael Snow's wavelength is often talked about in academia, so pairing it with more pop culture references is making it accessible and humorous. For the video that was where The Simpsons was like superimposed on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's like it is kind of inaccessible in terms of like watching and understanding it, but it is just like so accessible because you can just search on Google and find it to watch it, right? But yeah, I think it's funny when people start pairing these kind of like high culture watermarks with things like The Simpsons, which is obviously a lot of like meme culture too, so it kind of like video meme, I guess.
So Natalie says the stock music really has a humorous element to it. With the matches, I was getting lost in the aesthetics of the video and the object to the point where I forgot what I was looking at and became absorbed.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, that goes back to, you know, the longer cut, obviously. And also the, you know, the way that match kind of moves and dances, I think is really, really interesting. You know, that was slowed down, but it was, in a way, it didn't really look like it was in slow motion when I was watching it again. It was kind of hard to tell what the actual speed was. So that happened quite fast, but then, you know, when you slow it down, it looks natural, but it's, you know, it didn't happen that quick or that slowly.
Definitely. Okay, and this is just a cute comment from Evan that the strawberry toothpaste sounds gross, so they're on your kid's side there.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. But it's got good drips. It's got good bubbles.
So it serves a purpose.
Definitely, yeah.
So Natalie says, it looks like you've produced a lot of work during the residency. A combination question from me, I suppose. How in your experience during a global pandemic where the residency had to be remote and you were given the gear to like, you know, play independently, did you find that was like similar to your creative practice usually, or was it like completely different than what you've experienced before?
Yeah, it definitely was. I think, you know, in the past, it's similar to getting a grant and then working through that just in studio. But the benefit obviously is the support and the, you know, the technology to be able to try and use was really great. But in terms of my actual like workflow and working, yeah, it's similar to how it would normally work. And I was able to just like focus on it 100%, which was amazing. And things, you know, things could keep going. You kind of have to just cut yourself off at a certain point because your studio is like got rotting melons and like shaving cream everywhere. It's kind of disgusting.
Definitely.
So it's good. It ended at a good point. And I shot a lot of footage, I feel like, and it's to the point where I'm still, when I sat down to edit, I was just like kind of so overwhelmed by it. So I edited a bulk of it, and I kind of had to take a break, and I'll go back to it and see what else I've got in there. Or it might even be the point where I can actually edit some stuff out that wasn't as successful because I shot so much, which is really nice to have that option.
Yeah, that's a good spot to be in. We have a question. Where do you think you'll take this work, or will you take it further?
That's a good question. I mean, I do really like working in this way. I love every opportunity where I can show my work in a public space. You know, whether that's mostly been in photography in the past, but in video, I mentioned Mississauga Square. And just, you know, going back to that idea of changing the context to change the meaning and sort of like confuse the meaning. You know, I'd love to be able to exhibit some of this in public at some point. But even, you know, I like the idea of it being on YouTube and someone stumbling on it. You know, I think in some form, something from it will likely wind up in an exhibition. I just don't know what or when that is.
Definitely. I have a question. I'm curious about the objects chosen. They're very mundane, accessible, but also recognizable. Is the recognition of the objects important?
In a way, they're all meant to be kind of ubiquitous, so recognizable to some degree. And that's for some obvious reasons, because it's what I have around in my studio, or in my kitchen or in my house. But also a big part of it is trying to make this kind of like everyday or ubiquitous object seem strange. So that could be in combination with something else, or in how it's, stacked, or the movement it's being used with. So that's definitely a strategy I'm playing with. Early on in my practice, as it is now, I would buy things from stores to photograph. I didn't really know what they were, and I would often go to hardware stores to do that. So I'm not the handiest guy, so I would buy, tools and things that were really interesting formally, but I didn't necessarily know what they were used for, and I would photograph those in different ways, trying to kind of figure out how they might function formally in a photograph. And then when I was done, I would return those. So there's still some aspect of that in my work, except now the objects are kind of like being found much more. So that could be, out of the recycling bin, or a kitchen drawer, or, something like that, much more domestic.
Definitely. And last one for now. So this will be the final call for questions. We'll leave some time for the delay though. I'm interested in where the GAN stuff will go. Do you have any more plans for using computers to collaborate?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really cool and exciting. And it's something I had struggled with. I think a few years ago, I read about Robbie Barrett, who was early on, he was creating new landscape and portrait paintings, basically by training GANs on, full museum archives of paintings, and they're just like so bizarre. And that really piqued my interest early on, but it's a really inaccessible process if you don't have like a foundational, coding ability, or, some knowledge of computer science. But there are now different platforms that have come out that are bridging this kind of machine learning process with artists, because they know there are such creative potential possibilities with these machine learning processes that aren't accessible to artists. So it was rediscovering one of these platforms I was on a beta for. And, at first I kind of dismissed it because it still was a bit tricky of how to do it. But I finally got it to a point where I got again trained. And it's the kind of thing where you can continue to train it. You keep giving it more steps. So I don't know how far along I am now, but it's pretty far, and you can see more detail come out as you go. But I think, in answer to the question, I think bringing it back into my photos, or combining my photos into the images it puts out. So not having the GAN's output be the final product, but playing with it a bit more, and seeing what it can do. So, that can come through video editing, obviously. That can come through, shooting objects to incorporate within the same frame as well. So I think that's where it's going at this point. Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, right now, it's not like every image it gives you is good. Oftentimes you'll tell it to give you like 500 images, and then you'll go through those, and maybe, depending on how many steps you've trained it, you could have like 5 to 10 that are cool you might want to do something with. And there's definitely, maybe not the full composition, but there's elements of them that are really interesting texturally, and look almost like something. So it's kind of about teasing out those elements and then, you know, combining them back into the photographs, I think. That's where it's going.
Nice. They were a nice surprise for me to see, because they were so different than what I understood of your practice.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, obviously, because I'm the expert on my own practice, but when I see them and I start seeing elements of specific photographs within them, it's really bizarre. I have another video I can share quickly if you're interested. Let's see here. There's kind of, where was it? And okay. But it's, my wife says that my photos are really phallic, and I never really got that. And then this GAN just started giving me all of these super phallic, kind of bready sponge squash shapes. And then I was kind of like, oh my God, there is something to that, to the way I shoot and the way I stack things and frame things, that I just look like penises all over the place. So let's see, I can just loop this too. It's interesting too, you can kind of see the edge of the frame changes a little bit. And there's just these really beautiful alien textures that come through as well. And again, it's, you know, it becomes super unique to my own practice because these are all my photos that only I have access to. So in that way, I'm the only person that could have created this GAN, right? So it involved, I think I said 723, and a lot of photos that I hadn't edited or ever exhibited or really thought about, that I was just dragging out of folders to get in there. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the dream of automation, where, you know, robots work for us and then we have all the time to make art and literature. But here it's the automation is making the art instead. So I have more time to edit commercial photos or something like that.
That's very interesting. Yeah, these textures are awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of this comes through with the up-resing that happens too, because it's like it's kind of like a low res version is spat out, and then yeah, and it's just like I don't know, an extreme form of sharpening and filling in the gaps that the computer's doing. Anyway, kind of looks like a cheesy or a Cheeto as well.
Definitely. That's awesome. We have one more question from Jessica.
Cool.
And maybe we'll end it there. In terms of artificial intelligence, what is your posture about the tools also defining the aesthetics of the piece? As you were saying, the learning curve for these tools is bigger and you kind of have to build your own systems. These examples, they analyze your photographs, but what we also see is the aesthetic traces of the tool you are using.
Yeah, definitely. There's no question. Like if you've seen one GAN image or video, there's like a very strong aesthetic that comes through in that. And in that way, it is kind of like more of a collaboration with the computer. Which is kind of how I see it. So yeah, I mean, I like those videos as they are. I don't think I'd feel comfortable myself just exhibiting them as they are, because it is GAN work, and if someone else is showing work they made with a GAN, even though they're using different imagery, the aesthetics are going to be very similar. And as it becomes more ubiquitous and more accessible, there is going to be a lot more. There are going to be a lot more artists working with it, so it becomes important and to kind of make your own mark on that again, which is why, yeah, I'm thinking about how I can bring my own photos back into it, and maybe a form of digital collage or a more seamless integration, to add like maybe a real orange in with that weird smear orange or like squished half orange form, right? But it's interesting too, because there's like a thingness. It's a thing, right? You can't describe what it is. It's not anything really. The only way you can describe it is it's some thing that looks orange-ish. I don't know if that answers the question at all. Just kind of rambling.
I think it does. I think in some way, shape, or form, all artists talking about their work ramble to some extent.
Yeah, if you just say a bunch of words, you hope that the question will be answered.
Definitely. Thank you so much for one, showing all the work you made during this residency, because it was really incredible that you were able to like pick up the black magic and like master it so quickly. That was awesome. And two, like taking us down this like YouTube tour tonight.
Yeah, it's one of the more fun artist talks I've given, I think. I can just revisit some William Wegman videos.
Yeah, they were great. Any final words?
Well, I just want to thank you again, for the support, and of course for the access to the camera and the lights. It really, it meant making this work. This work wouldn't have been made without it. So I'm very appreciative for the support in that way.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you everybody for attending tonight. Stay tuned for future events. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm sure we'll be sharing more about your practice like online and social media in the next few weeks to come. And the biggest thank you tonight goes to Jessica, the mastermind behind the live streaming this evening. Thank you once again for another event. Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
This is it.
Thanks to everyone or anyone that watched too.